good friend, an awesome guy, a big difference maker in the community. He is an entrepreneur. You can read his bio.
There's a quote that I don't know who to attribute it to, so you can tweet and say I said it. It's success leaves clues. And for me, it was about finding mentorship very early. It was about finding and realizing first what I wanted to do with my life, and then putting myself in a position to be successful at that thing. And so I knew very early I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I thought it was going to be in the music business. And so I found the program director for a radio station. Being in Toledo, the closest thing to the music business was the radio station. And so I said, well, I'm going to figure out a way to have a conversation with that guy. So I met the program director at a teen summit, told him what I wanted to do. And he said, you know, best thing I can tell you to do is find an internship somewhere. You know, matter of fact, just come out to the radio station and we can finish this conversation, because there was a lot of kids who wanted to talk to this guy at the same time. I was a teenager, a few weeks from graduation. So I went out to the radio station that next day, and he said, again, best thing I can tell you to do is find an internship somewhere. Matter of fact, we need an intern here. So my internship started that day. And 3 days after that, he put me on the air with him. And I was on the air with him every day after that from 5 to 8 o'clock. On weekdays, 6 months after that, they gave me my own Saturday night show. I was 18 years old doing, you know, Saturday night radio. I had the #1 radio show in the city. 6 months after that, he went to the morning show and they gave me his afternoon drive show. So I'm still 18 years old doing drive time radio. And so I was #1 in my demographic, 18 to 24, at 18 years old myself, doing drive time radio. And this is a station that has 3,000 watts. So imagine KISS has 100,000 watts and K100 has 100,000 watts. And I'm beating those guys in 18 to 24 demographics in drive time, which is not regular, right? And so, but I said that to say that started because I knew what I wanted to do, and I put myself in the position to be around those people who were doing those things. And so whether or not you find somebody close to you in your neighborhood, in your community, I learned a ton from reading books. I learned a ton from watching YouTube videos. Back then it was like MySpace, you know, all those things. Put yourself in a position to be successful. You know, one thing I learned is like success is not hard. Becoming the type of person that becomes successful is the hard part. The work is on you. The world is looking for value. And if you become a valuable person, you can find yourself in leadership roles. You can find yourself in successful business positions, and you can find yourself running a successful company. The work is on you becoming a valuable person. People sell rocks, bro. Like, you know, like people will buy anything, but I want to find the person who's in the market for a rock. If you're trying to sell me a rock, I have no use for a rock. But if you find a contractors all over the world buy rocks every day. People sell air. You want to sell me air, well, obviously I'll get it for free. But there are people in the hospital who don't get it for free, right? So if you want to find yourself in a leadership position, people like Clint inspired me. You know, he was there for me when I was struggling in my business and I needed somebody to talk to, and somebody who wasn't so intimately involved in what I was doing, but I knew had some experience and saw other people running successful businesses and grew successful people in business outside of his classroom. And so putting yourself in a position to be successful is the most important thing you can do. If you want to be, you know, a Wade Capsicavage one day, you need to be working on a campaign like Wade's. I worked for free. I didn't tell you by that part. When I was doing the radio, I was doing it for free. And there were people who were getting paid there that weren't showing up every day. I knew what I wanted, and I took all the limits off on doing what I had to do to go get it. And that's what people don't do today. That's not regular. We want something in exchange for the value we provide too early sometimes. And so I planted a whole bunch of seeds in my future, and now those seeds are starting to be, you know, plants coming up out of the ground. But we want it too early sometimes. I've been very fortunate in my life, but I took a lot of risks and a lot of sacrifices super early in my life also. Some of the work that some people start doing later on in life, when it actually hits them that, oh, I'm out in the real world and I better get my stuff together. I was doing that work when I was 16 and 17 years old. And so if you look at some of the things that I've been privileged and blessed and honored to, I'm sitting on the board of the University of Toledo. Like, I grew up across the street listening to the band practice, from my front yard. I grew up on Ranch, like, which is right behind Corpus Christi. Like, I grew up right there, listening to the band practice from my front yard, hearing the cannon go off, you know, when we scored a touchdown. And to be sitting on the board today, like, looking how I look, like I wear Jordans, like I collect Jordans. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
He can pull it off.
Yeah, but I mean, but the world is looking for value, and we live in a world today where it doesn't matter as much anymore as it used to what you look like. When you open your mouth, do you have something to say that adds to the conversation? Do you have an actual skill? Can you bring value to the table? And so I knew early that I wanted to be a valuable person because I knew I wanted to reap the rewards of being valuable. So I invested in myself. So here's the thing about, like, I'm a very introverted person, but being introverted does not serve me. So I had to figure out a way to look, if I want to do this thing, I got to build the qualities, even though they're not natural to me, that provide me success in this thing. And so I wasn't necessarily nervous. I didn't know what I was doing, but I had the ambition to go get it. And the ambition kind of fills the gap. It closes that gap between who's successful and who's not. Factors of a great leader. I mean, I think you guys have a lot of opposite of the things that you wrote on the wall. I think those say a lot. I'll add two more. One, you know, the hunger for learning. Number one is there's a movie Leonardo DiCaprio plays Frank Abagnale called Catch Me If You Can. And so Frank Abagnale is this guy. He's a big fraudster, and he was a guy who didn't have a college degree. He wasn't a college professor, but he found himself in a professor role at a university. And we say, well, how did you find success as a university professor and you weren't even a professor? Like, he was like a 17-year-old kid or something. Wait, probably, he was a teenager. And he said, it's easy. Like, you just have to study a day ahead of the students. That's how you find success, because most students only read up to what they got to read. He says, well, if I read
Not this group.
Well, not this group, yes. And so he said, if I stay a day ahead of the students or a chapter ahead, I'm going to be successful because they don't go any further. And so having that hunger for learning, that hunger for knowledge, knowing what it is you want to do, and then going to get the books, watch the YouTube videos, follow the people on Instagram, follow them on LinkedIn, go to the networking conferences, join the ALA, things like this put you at a competitive advantage so that when you do find yourself in leadership position, you've done the extracurricular work that other people won't do. And secondarily, is knowing your role. So I'm a CEO of a company, you know, and I have two of my guys who are fantastic guys. But if I'm sitting in front of my computer, you know, building a website, I'm not out finding money to pay these guys, right? If I'm doing their job and mine, my job as a CEO is to make sure I can pay them on Friday. That's my job. And so if I'm doing their work, I can do this work. But if I'm doing it, how am I making money to pay him and to pay him and the other folks who are on the squad? So knowing my role and knowing that I love to do that work, video production and editing, and that's a passion of mine. But I'm building a business. I'm not romantic about this. I love doing that work, but I can't afford to do it and build a business. So I got to find people who are as good or better to put in those seats. And they won't stay if I keep jumping over their shoulder to pitch in. And so my job is to lead. And so if they don't do it the way I like it, I can provide feedback and say, let's work on it together. We can do a little bit things differently and et cetera. But I can't be in there all the time building websites. Now we're in the transition part of our business where I'm just finally able to put people in those roles. So some of the roles I'm still doing, some of them I'm not doing anymore. I have great guys on my team who are, some of them are here today. But my job is to make sure there's money in the bank on Friday. So if you're in this room and you want to be an entrepreneur, learn your craft. And then find other people who would do the craft so that you can find more deals. Okay?
Well said. Now, why are you there?
You know, it's my duty to make sure that when I walked across that stage here at UT, there was nobody that looked like me shaking my hand. So my job sitting in this seat is to make sure I don't screw it up so the next person that looks like me who gets his name put in the hat is not looked at differently because Will Lucas screwed it up. So the seats that you sit in, whether you are a white male, white female, black man, black female, Indian woman, it doesn't matter who you are. Somebody's coming after you.
So that's very well said. Thanks, Will. Last word.
Leaders fail by keeping the right people in the wrong seats on the bus. So it's one thing to have the wrong people on your team. It's another thing to have the right people, but doing the wrong thing that doesn't fit in their skill set. So I had people on my team who came in under one, job description, but they were the right people, and I didn't find until after they were here that they should probably be doing something else, and being able to transition them to that new role without tearing them down.
You work with TED Talks and stuff, but whatever position I make it to, it's partially going to be because of some of the things you shared here today, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
One question I've not received from a lot of different people that we've heard is, what are some of the challenges facing emerging leaders? Those of us, we haven't necessarily made it yet, but what are some of those things that you see are challenges coming from emerging leaders?
So and I'm not going to say it from the other side, because there are some problems on the people who sit in the seats now that they have of keeping people out of the game. But emerging leaders have this idea that people who sit in the seats are supposed to give them a shot. And it don't always happen that way. You got to take the shot. Ain't nobody going to give you nothing. Take it. And sitting back waiting for somebody to let you have a seat, you're going to be sitting waiting a long time. Because just because I got old don't mean I'm ready for the next generation to take the seat I sit in. Period.
That is it.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
I really enjoyed your work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Rack
much.
of
Mayor, you're hard to come behind.
Oh, not at all.